I am calling the meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting to order at 11:03. Roll call, please.
Powell. Here. Hoffman.
Present.
McGilvray.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Cavell.
Here.
Gingell. Kuhn.
Here.
Lubes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from June 3rd and June 8th, 2021. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Powell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. The next item is approving our agenda with 2 communications and our regular agenda items. I have a motion by Commissioner McGilvray, support from Commissioner Nelson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item is public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment. We move to communications. There are 2 items. First, from 52nd 2 District Court, fiscal year 2022 Michigan Drug Court Grant Program application. The second item is from the Animal Shelter and Pet Adoption Center, the intake disposition report from May 2021. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner McGilvray. Any comments on communications? Do we need all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Communications is approved. We move on to our regular agenda item. The first item is from Area Agency on Aging 1B, fiscal year 2022 annual implementation plan. And I believe I saw Mr. Carson and Maggie Ouellette here from Area Agency on Aging to speak to this. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner McGilvray. All right, welcome. It is nice. Oh, and we have Jim McGuire here also, and Katie. Nice representation.
The entire agency is here for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us this opportunity. Maggie is going to be our primary presenter, and myself, Jim and Katie. We're here for color commentary and to help out any way we can. But we're honored to be here, and we look forward to allowing us to speak to you. So I'll turn it over to Maggie.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Maggie Ouellette. I'm Director of ASA Programs with the Area Agency on Aging 1B. I just wanted to start off with a little bit of an introduction on who we are. We are one of 620 area agency and agents throughout the country designated by Congress and the state legislature to provide information, advocacy, and services to adults age 16 over. We're here to serve more than 780,000 older adults in the 6 Southeast Michigan counties we serve, which includes almost 30% of Michigan's older adults. We call these programs our Older American Act programs, and they are funded with federal Older American Act funding, state funding through Older Michiganians Act, and county funding. Last year, we helped enhance the lives of 33,000 seniors in Oakland County, investing about $8.3 million. Other areas that we helped our older adults in Oakland County was we served 716,400 meals to homebound older adults. We service 750 older adults and adults with disabilities through the My Ride 2 program that we run. 7,700 Medicare recipients provided free one-on-one counseling through our MAP program. 7,400 callers were connected to programs and services through our information and assistance lines in Oakland County. And we supported 1,200 participants through our in-home programs that we administer and run. So in today's presentation, we present for your approval, our annual implementation plan for fiscal year 2022, which begins October 1st. This plan is the third year of our fiscal year 2022 multi-year plan. Included in the plan are updates on our programs, on goals set in our 3-year plan. The following county commission approval from all 6 counties, we will seek approval of the plan from the state commissions on services to the aging in September. Your community drives what we do. Decisions in the plan are made with ongoing input from stakeholders, including our provider partners. And in May, AAA1B hosted a public hearing to gather feedback on our plan. 41 community members attended our virtual public hearing in May. How do we do this? With the Older American Act program budget, we invest in 2 ways: award grants to community organizations, and we administer some access and in-home service programs ourselves. Our plan that we have presented to you includes information about the AAA1B response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And what we've done in Oakland County is that we had 30,000 pieces of PPE equipment that we secured and distributed to our providers, 1,000 well-being calls to program participants to ensure the health and safety at the onset of the pandemic and throughout, 2,000 older Americans connected with food support resources and friendly color programs, and 9,000 quarantine emergency food boxes were distributed to older adults. Some other highlights that we have, we collaborated with our counties on vaccine, getting the homebound vaccination efforts in place. Agency staff and volunteers delivered over 15,000 quarantine boxes as well, and we distributed the PPE. We administered all that. Some ongoing needs that the AAA1B continues to experience shortages in the number of direct care workers available to provide in-home care services. So in our annual implementation plan, we outlined our objectives for fiscal year 22. We will continue to work on program development objectives set in our multi-year plan. We have these objectives include developing resources for family caregivers, pursuing fundraising and grant opportunities to support our program, and ensuring that AAA1B services are accessible to our diverse communities. In response to the feedback heard through our public hearing, we set a new objective to review the AAA1B service standards, including chore and home injury control services, with input from contractors in preparing for our RFP cycle, our request for proposal that it is upcoming in fiscal year 2023. And with that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present the AAA1B fiscal year 2022 annual implementation plan, and we're happy to take any comments or questions.
Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Cavell.
I just wanted you to repeat what you stated in regards to the chore services.
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't catch everything. Can you repeat that, where y'all at with that?
Sure, so where we're at is that the chore services, we had feedback from the public that the chore services were a little bit too restrictive, or they wanted a little bit more flexibility in how that program's administered. And upon review or reinterpretation, the biggest thing was lawn service and snow. And so with the lawn service, we have been in communication and advocating on that service, that we're allowed to fund that. And it's not, they consider it a non-continuous service, thus does not apply for the funding. And we're working on advocating for that. We did supply that for a long time under our chore program. But again, through the reinterpretation of the service definition, that doesn't constitute funding, but we're working to try and regain that flexibility.
Are y'all working with any other agencies in regards to that as a backup plan, just in case that doesn't work? As far as the funding mechanism.
We have been working with, helping them to try and identify some alternative options. A lot of the counties have identified other services when we identified that interpretation was not going to be able to be funded. And The chore program does allow for a lot of other services that could be funded, not with chore. Now, through our needs assessment, we have identified that lawn and snow is a priority for our seniors, which is why we continue to advocate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. One is
Yes.
I guess, Maggie, Katie, and Jim, of what is the state of being a senior in Oakland County, especially coming out of the pandemic? Looking at the executive summary, there's a whole list of ongoing needs. So if you could kind of wax pros on that. And then the second question is to Mr. Carson, since you're kind enough to take the time to be here as the big boss. From your vantage point, I mean, how are things going? What is like the continuum of care as relates to aging in Oakland County? Are there innovative or new things that are being done elsewhere that should be done that we should be aware of? So those two.
So Jim or Katie, is it okay if I defer to you for the first one?
Sure. Sorry about, took me a while to find the mute button. In terms of your first question, Commissioner, in terms of what is the status coming out of the pandemic, well, first is hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic. Some people are concerned about the potential for another wave coming through. But a lot of our programs that serve seniors in the county are looking at reopening, particularly programs that are senior center oriented. Many of the programs that we've had, we were able to sustain virtually, particularly our evidence-based prevention programs, which are classes that we hold for folks. And we're still doing those remotely, but looking for the opportunity to resume doing them in person. One of the problems that's been exacerbated is the direct care worker shortage. We had a direct care worker shortage for in-home care for many of our programs before the pandemic, and it really worsened during the pandemic when a lot of these low-wage workers decided it was better to not work and take the benefits that were available or to protect their families or fulfill their family responsibilities if they had children in school. That exacerbated the problem. What helped it a little bit was initially in the pandemic, some of our home care clients were so concerned about workers coming into their homes that they suspended their service. Well, now most of them have restated that service, and so we're really struggling to find workers for a lot of these individuals. So our wait lists are huge, but even when we do have someone come up on the list, we have trouble finding someone to take them. And then reopening is, activities are underway. In terms of an organization, we're still working mostly virtually. We went completely virtual work as staff at the agency and suspended our home visits to clients, but now we've reinitiated that with our in-home services and our nursing home ombudsman program. Our nursing home ombudsmen are now resuming regular nursing home visits. Maggie or Katie, other items that you want to mention that are noteworthy?
No, we are planning on returning for our in-home programs. We're targeting for the fall, like September, to possibly return for our caseworkers and social supports coordinators back into the homes.
From advocacy standpoint, we're expecting the state to communicate with us soon about the American Rescue Plan and how some of those funds can be used to assist in reopening moving forward. So that'll be an important piece of information we are looking for from the Aging and Adult Services Agency about as communities get those funds, communicating with local leaders as well as the state about how that can drive investment in senior services.
Do you mind if I do it?
Sure.
Jim, you said that there's a shortage of workers, but then also there's a growing wait list, so that if someone does come off a wait list, that there might not be workers available to meet the need. Do you see that kind of bottleneck being fixed? Is that just a side effect of COVID, or is that something more structural from your vantage point?
I think it's more structural. The home care industry that we depend on as our vendors to deliver, to go into the homes to provide the personal care, homemaking, respite for family caregivers, that industry is experiencing labor shortage, just like just about every other industry. in the economy. So it's not unique to all businesses, but we had a severe problem before the pandemic, which has, I think, gotten worse because of that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Kuhn, and followed by Commissioner Powell.
Oh, Mr. Carson had there was a question for him too.
Who had a question? Was your question answered?
Not by Mr.
There
Carson.
there was a second question for me about where we are in Oakland County and what do we
Thank
see
you.
going
Sorry.
forward.
Okay.
That's fine. I appreciate the question. I think it's really important. I would definitely start out by saying that the value of a senior millage in Oakland County would be something that would be amazing to support seniors. As we know, our senior generation is multiplying. It's going to continue to move forward. And like any program, we have limitations on our funding. So we can only work with the funding that we have through the Older Americans Act and Michiganians Act. And through that funding, we do our best to try to meet everyone. As Jim mentioned, there is a waiting list. There are people needing services, and we are unable to fill some of those needs based on the shortage that the caregivers just are not showing up to work. They're not going into homes. They were afraid of catching COVID, transmitting it to their family as well. And as Jim also mentioned, that there was a situation where people didn't want caregivers coming into the home. A senior millage would really match well with us. The services we would be able to do would continue. The senior millage would enrich it, and Oakland County would definitely be a step forward by doing that. So I would encourage those conversations to continue. As an agency, we are always looking to see what is going on within our senior population and how we can definitely affect it. We know that there's a lot of programs that seniors need. One program I think that is important is to see how we can meet seniors in long-term care settings. We did a program that Jim headed up for isolation, and we worked very hard during the pandemic to see what we could do to relieve some of the isolation through verbal communication that was online, through the little disc things that I think Google has, and also mechanical pets, which was very effective, allowing people to have a sense of connection and doing other things that were really positive. You know, we are looking at the possibility of getting into a special needs plan to meet seniors. We're also talking about what we could do with federal subsidized clinics. We're really looking around to see how we can expand what we're currently doing within the agency to really meet our mission and how we can go about it. Partnering with Oakland County on programs would be really amazing for us. We have a great relationship, and we've always maintained that great relationship and want it going forward. But there are programs that you have or things that we're thinking about. We are always willing to listen and see if we can come to some type of resolution to move forward with programs supporting seniors and adults with disabilities.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate the very detailed response that Mr. McGuire did to my, provided for my questions. It was very helpful. I forwarded those responses to all our committee members so that they would have them. I just had it, and I haven't, unfortunately, I just got it this morning, so I really don't have any follow-up on that. However, a couple of questions I had based on what you've said this morning. You've talked about the fact that you're advocating for lawn and snow service. What does that involve?
So we've been talking with our county, or the agencies or the counties that this has impacted, and trying to help them to look at other sources or other options. There have been other counties that have identified other areas or other funding sources to supply this to their seniors. And then advocating also then is with the state of Michigan, with ASA, to help them be a little bit more flexible or understand the need to have that flexibility within that service definition.
Okay, and is there any, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add in, thank you, Maggie, and I appreciate the opportunity again to respond to that. For years, our lawn service was something that we paid for out of our chore dollars. So every week, every other week, we would take care of senior lawns throughout our 6-county region. There was a look at the actual definition, and we realized that we were not doing it correctly. It cannot be continuous service, as Maggie mentioned. Where we really fell down and did not do a good job was how we notified counties and notified groups that we work with that we had the definition change. And that's where we failed at that point. We have to do better at that, and I've recognized that, and going forward we will. As far as snow, because snow is not continuous, you can go 2 weeks without snow, and then you can go 3 days with snow every day. We're able to fund it because it's not a weekly or scheduled planned activity. But we are working hard, and we have spoken to the powers that be at Lansing that really think that the survey should go back to the way we interpreted it and wanted it to be at the beginning. And they're working very hard to collaborate with us to get a change in front of the commission, allowing all the AAAs throughout the state to be able to utilize those dollars that way. We are looking for funds, gap funding, to see if we can help that way. We just don't have that much money allocated to gap funding, but we are working very hard to correct that. And our communication going forward, I guarantee, will be corrected.
Thank you. And is there anything specific that we can do at the county level to help on that issue?
Send money.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
'Cause I can maybe answer some of Coon's as far as where we're at with this.
Commissioner
So
Powell.
just so you know, Commissioner Coon, a lot of the lawn and snow recipients from this live in Pontiac. And area agency was partnered with OSHA. OSHA was the ones who will oversee the program. Well, we had some things happen to where the program went back to area agent, and then a lot of Pontiac people failed to not get this service, maybe recently over the last maybe 1 or 2 years. So when I heard about it, OSHA asked me, because I'm on the board, for us as commissioners to look into this to see if the county can bridge that gap. So I have it on our leadership's radar. It could be something that we can collaborate on, since you kind of showing an interest now and asking the same questions that I've been asking for about the last 6 to 8 months to try to get this information, so that we can work on it to see if we can step up and try to help our seniors in that way, Oakland County wide though, of course. So that's where we're at, just to give you an update, because this has not been on my radar. I just have not been able to talk to my colleagues yet, because I want to bring more information to know where we're at and what options we will have. My question though to you now, Maggie, is do y'all have a dollar amount or a budgetary number that you could probably give us to let us know what does that possibly look like from a funding standpoint? What would that program look like if we did just focus on snow and lawn removal to bridge the gap?
So that would be something I have to follow up with you. I apologize. Is it Commissioner
Powell.
Goldenfeld? I'm
Powell.
sorry,
Commissioner Powell.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty identifying who's speaking to me right now. But yes, Commissioner Powell, that is a number I can follow up with you with.
That's
the
great.
other thing too is that we do have a plan, our program manager who oversees those services, to try and identify another possible agency to come into RFP for the next cycle. If we are able to identify someone, then for the upcoming year, there'd have to be a request for proposal sent out. We still have to follow our rules or our processes, but definitely we are trying to build some type of a community relationship or identify a community agency that can provide that in the next multi-year plan. But as far as your questions in regards to the funding amount, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, so with that, can you just, yes, please get with our chair and inform us of that information, and then this body can figure out how we want to move on it with our commissioners. Thank you. And then I had a second question. When you get a chance, I've seen some letters in here in regards to the grandparents raising grandkids, and I just wanted to know, where are we at? I was trying to follow the letters. There's a lot to try to read, so I wanted to see if y'all could just give me an overall update on that program. Again, a lot of my residents here in the city of Pontiac benefit from that program, and I don't need that to go away and I'm hoping that's not what was in the list of packets we got. So could you update me on that program as well too? Thank you.
Yes, I can do that. We have a strong partnership with OSHA, providing support to grandparents raising grandchildren. And we funded them for a number of years to provide that service, and everything's fine there. They have been coming to our public hearings for the last couple of years, really using their voice as advocates to talk about the needs of that community, and prompted us to do a deeper dive study into the needs of grandparents raising grandchildren and adding it to our advocacy plans as an agency. So we collaborate with them and talking with state legislators about kinship care issues. So really the letters were a sign of that strong relationship and how we've been working with them as advocates on issues that are important to them.
Okay, great. That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that.
Oh.
This is Jim. To clarify, the plan is to continue funding OLSA for that work. We're also experimenting. We got a grant in another county to expand our services to grandparents raising grandchildren by providing or pilot testing respite for grandparents raising grandchildren who, as anybody that's raised kids, sometimes you need a break, and a lot of times that's not available to these grandparents raising grandchildren. They're 24/7. So we're looking at our pilot in Washtenaw County where we've gotten a grant to test out some respite options for grandparents raising grandchildren. And if that's the case, we may be looking for opportunities to try to expand that throughout the region. COVID kind of set us back on that, so maybe a while before we know whether we want to try to move that forward, but we're looking for other ways that we can support that population beyond just the support that we give to OLSA.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in as well regarding the chore with OLSA. Ron Borngesser used to be the president CEO of OLSA, and he's on our board, and he and I have spoken about them pulling out of that program for part of Oakland County and Livingston County. On my behalf, he's reached out to Susan Harding, who's their CEO, and she and I are scheduling a meeting to see if they want to re-engage. We're hoping that they do. If not, as we mentioned, we are looking for alternatives, but we're hoping that OLSA might be willing to try that program one more time.
That's great news.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you. How many lawns and driveways are the grass is cut and snow is plowed in Oakland County and in the region? Do you know? Approximately.
I would have to look back at past year numbers to be able to see what the amount of people who were served, but that's something I can research for you.
Yes.
Oh, I think that'd be a good idea, but I mean, do you have a guesstimate? I mean, we're spending money to do it. It seems like we'd have some kind of feel for that.
Without having knowledge of it, my guess is that it would be in the hundreds and not in the thousands.
Okay.
It also was serving.
Yeah.
Okay, this might be a crazy idea, but maybe if we could find someone to coordinate all the lawn services in the county and all these snowplow companies in the county and come up with a program, you could call it Lawn and Snow Angels or something. And you could get these companies together and say, look, for every truck you have, will you volunteer to do one driveway or cut one lawn? I'm just thinking that I think people, and it might sound crazy, but I think if you could coordinate that, I know people step up. I'm in the snowplow business. I plow a lot of driveways for free just because I know they're seniors. But it's just an idea.
I love that idea, Commissioner Hoffman.
I think it's really, it's a great idea, and we're always willing to look at something like that. We are highly regulated, and as we're highly regulated, our contracts are also highly regulated. We have to do background checks on every employee, or we ask the company to do criminal background checks on all employees. Yeah. There's a lot of different things that go into it because of our funding and the rules we work with. It's not an easy thing to pull people together that way. It's much better if we can get one main group or one main organization to perform those services for us, but we're always willing to look at that.
Well, I'd appreciate it if you do look at it, and nothing's impossible, and we're talking about funding sources and lack of funding sources, so if you can get some people to volunteer, I know guys out there would do that in a heartbeat to help a senior. And they could even do it in the community they live in. They might even know those seniors. And they're not gonna have any personal contact with anybody. They're not going in a home. They're cutting the grass and they're plowing their driveways. Just saying.
Thank you.
We'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you.
I just want to ask quickly, because Commissioner Hoffman just asked for like a statistic or a number throughout the county. But as far as these shore programs and this assistance to seniors, it differs if a city is managing their own CDBG versus if a city does not. So there's some areas within the county that this affects in a greater propensity than other areas. And so when we talk about doing something countywide, we need to keep that in mind, because how we could do it to benefit all of our seniors throughout our county would have to be looked at based upon the city's management of their CDBG. So I know that OSA, per Commissioner Powell, because we both sit on the board, told me that they're not really participating at the level that they have been in the past. But at the same time, within Oakland County internally, we had an area or a division within our housing department that handled some of these chores. I don't know if it was not as much grass cutting and snow maintenance as it might have been painting or repairs to housing, but there are just a lot of different ways to look at this in general when we talk about how many people we're serving and how we're serving them. So I just wanted to bring that out. You know, when we look at it, there are a lot of different ways really to look at it because of how we handle CDBG. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Powell, for that explanation. It was very helpful. Hopefully, we'll be able to go forward with different proposals. Yeah. The other question that I had to do with the direct care workers, and I understand that you were able to give an added hourly rate up through a certain time frame. Can you talk a little bit about that, and if there's anything we can do on our end on that issue?
A premium pay increase for direct care workers that are providing hands-on care in primarily Medicaid programs, but also services funded by the Aging and Adult Services Agency was appropriated by the legislature starting in April of 2020 and has been authorized for sometimes just a period of a couple months at a time, currently authorized at the rate of $2.25 an hour until the end of this fiscal year. Right now, the legislature in their budget proposals for fiscal year 2022 is both the House recently passed a budget that does include the direct care worker increase, and the Senate has put that in their draft proposal as well. So right now, things are looking positive that will continue in fiscal year 2022 from the state legislature. One thing that we're asking for and working with MDHHS is to reduce some of the administrative complexities that have come along with the increase. It's been difficult for employers to track, and some hours that a worker works count for the $2 an hour. They change to a different client, it doesn't. And some of those difficulties have been because the increase has been temporary. So hopefully by making it permanent for a full fiscal year budget, that'll reduce some of those complexities. So those conversations are ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, then we need a roll call to accept this report, right?
Powell.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Cavell.
Yes.
Gingell.
Yes.
Kuhn.
Yes?
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is from the District Court, 52-1 Novi and 52-2 Clarkston, the reorganization of positions. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Hoffman, and we have Alexander Black and Brett Deary here to speak to this. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. We're presenting today for a consolidation of positions between our district courts. Just as a brief overview, in 2007, excessive budget cuts were required by all departments, as most of you know. And in the district court, the area that was hit the hardest was our workforce. And over the past 8 years, I've worked really hard here to bring the 52-1 district court back to an acceptable level in order to maintain not just acceptable, but exceptional service to the public. Unfortunately, 52-2 district court was hit very hard during that time. They end up with a lot of PT&E staff, and PT&E is great. Part-time, non-eligible are great staff, but unfortunately, a lot of times they're stepping stone positions, and you end up with a lot of turnover. This obviously affects not only the court staff, the morale, but it affects the services to the public. And so in this last budget, this budget time that we've just gone through, we were required to provide 2 PowerPoint presentations. We did one for administration, and then we had to do a second one for when Kyle Jen came on board. And in that planning, it was discovered, or we sort of already knew, but it was very glaringly obvious that 52-2 was very understaffed compared to the rest of us. Now, I don't want to suggest in any way that we were overstaffed here at 52-1 with this request, but when we look at where there's a greater need in the district courts, it's definitely in Clarkston. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to ask for more staff for a couple of reasons. As you probably know, when we want to get more staff, we have to find somewhere in our budget to fund that. Well, we've been asked to cut back so many times that there's no more money to take from the pot to be able to create any new positions. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is because, as a lot of you know, to reiterate again, that the 52-2 district court is very small, and there's nowhere to put additional staff. They literally don't have one more spot. The magistrate they have sits in a room, not even in a courtroom at this point. So they couldn't ask for more staff for those 2 reasons. So in lieu of that, during the process, I had indicated to administration that one of the cuts that we would agree to make, or that would make sense, would be that we would lose 2 of our PT&E, combine them with 1 of their PT&E to create this full-time person, hoping that they will have less turnover and more continuity in services. So as you can see from our packet, the miscellaneous resolution, in doing so, if we transfer our 2 positions to 52-2, it left, I think it was like $353, which will come out of 52-1's budget to fund. So what we're asking to do is consolidate our 2 PT&Es with their 1 PT&E, allow those 2 positions to go over to them to create 1 full-time position. And Brett, did you have any comment?
Yeah, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to thank and publicly acknowledge my sister administrator, Alex Black, for selflessly offering us her 2 part-time positions. I want to make it clear she had absolutely no obligation to take this cut and help out our division, and she was the architect of this idea. It was incredibly generous, and probably more importantly, it was very fiscally savvy of her to make this offer. And I'd like to concur in her request to create a full-time position at 52-2 by combining these 3 part-time spots, as it's desperately needed out here. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you. Are there questions? Commissioner Cavell?
Thanks, Chair. So does that mean 3 part-time people will lose their jobs and 1 full-time person will be hired?
They won't lose their jobs. So we originally had put this in for our plan for 2023, 24, and 25. I'm sure you know administration asked for a plan for 21, 22, and then for 23, 24, 25. I didn't anticipate that my 2 PT&E would leave. So we were waiting basically for them to be vacated, and then we're going to go ahead with this. They just were vacated in the last month. So no one will lose their job. No person is going to lose their job. No.
Thank you. Any other questions? It is an ingenious idea, so thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right, roll call, please.
The resolution number 2, Hoffman.
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Cavell.
Yes.
Gingell.
Yes.
Kuhn.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
We have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is from the Circuit Court Family Division, Oakland County Child Care Fund Budget 2021-2022. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner McGilvray. And we have John Cooper Ryder here and Melissa to answer any questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Cooper. I'm the business manager for the Circuit and Probate Court. And we also have here today with me Ivana Maplanka, who is the director of our local MDHHS. We also have Melissa Reed, who's our chief of juvenile casework services. Heather Calcaterra, who is our manager of Children's Village. And Chris Bujak, who's our chief of business operations for the court, and Pam Monville, who's our deputy court administrator. We're here to seek your approval to submit the FY 2022 Child Care Fund budget to the state of Michigan. As you can infer by all these introductions, it's a very collaborative effort between the county executive office, the circuit court, the Children's Village, and both the state and the local MDHHS office. The Child Care Fund is a special funding arrangement between the county and the state, which was established by statute, where the child care costs are shared at a 50-50 ratio. The funding is to support placement costs and programming costs for use in both the child protective proceeding cases as well as delinquency cases. All the costs are for the youth that are under circuit court's jurisdiction only. Up until October of 2019, the county always paid 100% of the child care fund costs up front, and then the state would reimburse us 50%. And then along came the state pays first legislation, which now has the state paying 100% of the costs for child protective proceeding cases only, paying 100% of those costs, and the county paying back 50%. So it get a little bit confusing there at times, but the county still pays 100% of the delinquency cases costs at 100%, and then gets reimbursed by the state 50% for the delinquency. For purposes of this plan and budget, the costs are broken down into 3 categories. We have facility costs, which is basically our Children's Village. They represent about 80% of this budget. Then we also have the out-of-home care costs in private institutions, which is about another 10%. And then finally, our in-home care programs, which represent about 10%. Our in-home care programs are designed to keep the youth in their home and in the community rather than having them go to some alternative, more expensive out-of-home placement situation. So bottom line is that the FY22 budget plan reflects gross expenditures of about 31 million and net expenditures of about 27 million. It's about 2% less than last year's submission. All the costs are already baked into the county executive's recommended budget. They're just packaged up a little bit differently for submission to the state. Also reflected in the plan is a 2.27 million in neglect and abuse expenditures, which represents that 50% that the county would owe. So we're looking for your approval to submit this to the state, and I'm here to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? You did a great job explaining, so no questions. Roll call, please.
On number 3, McGilvray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is from friend of the court, fiscal year 2022-23 Cooperative Reimbursement Program Grant Amendment. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Hoffman, and we have Susan Hollier here and Marquita Washington. Marquisha. All right, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Suzanne Hollier. I'm the friend of the court director, and I ask my partner, Marquisha Washington, to join me today. She will be bringing her portion of this contract before you shortly. This is our contract that funds 2/3 of our operation. It's federal money that passes through the State Office of Child Support in a few different ways, and it funds the bulk, really, of our operations. This is just a 2-year extension to the 5-year contract we're just now wrapping up. So I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this grant amendment? Roll call, please.
On item number 4, Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Powell, Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Yes.
Oh,
Powell,
Yes.
thank you. 9 yeas, 0 nays.
all right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioners, with your permission, I'll be back with Marquisha Washington in a short period of time in case you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is from Health and Human Services, amendment number 5 to the interlocal agreement with the Oakland Community Health Network for Substance Use Disorder Prevention Services. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner McGilvray. So we have Kate Guzman here and Jennifer Esking. I hope I'm saying that right.
Erskine. Yeah,
Erskine.
Guzman and Erskine.
Welcome. All right, was there anything you'd like to add about this item?
Nope, it's simply an amendment to an existing contract that would allow for reimbursement of purchasing of sterile syringes for our syringe service program, the harm reduction program that we're launching. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Any questions? Roll call, please.
On number 5, Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Why, thank you, everybody. Our next item, also from Health and Human Services, Neighborhood Housing and Development Division, fiscal year 2020-2021. Michigan State Housing Development Authority Housing Education Program Grant Acceptance. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Powell. And we have Kathy Williams here to answer any questions.
Good morning. This is a housing education program that we primarily use to provide housing counseling services by a certified HUD housing counselor for people who are looking to purchase a home. Many of the down payment assistance programs do require that they receive a certificate before they can receive the assistance. We provide that service. The grant also allows us to counsel people on mortgage default, foreclosure intervention. We have not seen much of that because of all the forbearances and the foreclosure moratoriums currently going on. However, we anticipate that changing come September. Is there any questions? It's for $15,000, slightly up from last year.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you. Hi, Kathy. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you? I missed
Fine.
the person.
Thank you. I know, right? I just want to just ask, as far as MISTA, they've been here to present to us as an entity. How can we promote their services? I know you do through your division, and we're looking at helping promote fair housing initiatives to renters. But as MISTA really speaks to people that want to purchase, do we or could we partner with your area and MISTA and bring something forth into the communities? They told us that they will do it, but is it a good idea to bring you in as a partner to maybe that type of town hall or seminar or informational session?
One of the services we do provide is fair housing education. We can certainly promote a workshop of some sort. We've even kind of talked about it. Prior to COVID, we did host one annually at the conference center. We provide all our pre-purchase clients with all the fair housing information so that they can recognize it. And we partner with the Fair Housing Center of Metro Detroit, which is the primary arm for fair housing enforcement in Oakland County. Oftentimes, MISTA does ask the housing counseling agencies to be part of all of their forums. So whatever we can do, I can certainly work with you, Commissioner Jackson, on getting something together, possibly in the summertime, or partner with MISTA.
Thank you. And also, you'd have a line on any banks that might want to be part of that as well, because, people are suggesting to me certain banks are participating in housing assistance for first-time homeowners and things like that. Would you be able to bring the banks into the program as well? Would that be something we should do?
We can contact them on your behalf, or you can contact them. The CRA banks are always willing to come out to events and talk. MISTA lenders who provide the down payment assistance paperwork, things like Chemical, Flagstar, Huntington, they all have interest in coming out to the community and talking to people. So we'll work it out whether the commissioners contact them or the housing counselors contact them. We'll work it out.
Okay, thank you. That might be something the whole board could do as a group. Thank you.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
On item number 6, Cavell,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGillivray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Lubes.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next item is from the Sheriff's Office, 2021 Snowmobile Law Enforcement Program Grant Application. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Hoffman, and looks like Guy Appier and Mike McCabe are here to address this.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning. This is an application, looked at it for 2 new snowmobiles, some equipment, 6 helmets, and some hours for snowmobile patrol if and when we get snow. This would be replaced. We currently have 2 newer that we purchased in 2019 snowmobiles. This will add back 2 more because we sold 2 old, outdated snowmobiles at the last auction. So we're asking to let us allow to apply for this grant.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner McGillivray, followed by Commissioner Kuhn.
Yeah, Under Sheriff, I'm just curious, whereabouts do we use the snowmobiles at?
Well, if there's snow,
Yeah.
we use it all over the county. County parks, there's trails, there's state parks. We get calls sometimes in the south end, Troy, other areas that we get snowmobile complaints where the local department can't necessarily respond to them. So they're there. They're also used in the wintertime in case of we have to search for missing people. Many times they're activated for that, where a quad runner may not be the appropriate response a snowmobile would be.
Just curious, thanks.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, a similar question, but what's going on at Pontiac State Park?
Pardon me, sir?
Pontiac Lake State Park. It says 3,700.
Well, it's just a large park that we sometimes have to respond to calls to.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I was just using an example of where it might be used.
Okay,
In the
but
resolution.
it's not limited to that.
No, sir, it can be used countywide.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, mostly in the north end, the west side, sometimes in the south end, but probably not in the city of Royal Oak.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
I'm just going to say that I'm a no vote on this because I don't understand or appreciate the value.
Well, if you're looking for somebody that's lost out in the woods and we need a snowmobile, that's where it's going to come in handy. But if you want to vote no, sir, that's up to you.
Thank you.
It's just fat, if I don't mind.
Commissioner
It
Hoffman?
just makes it faster. If there's 3 feet of snow in the woods, it could
I've
just
gone
speed up.
snowmobiling. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought just being from a city.
Just remember, I grew up on M52, so
That's
I
true.
moved to a city later in
Any
life.
other questions? Roll call, please.
On item number 7, Ginjo,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
No.
Lubes.
Yes.
You have 8 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Our last item is for informational only. It is looking at implementing body-worn cameras initiative within the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. And we have Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Woodward here to speak to this, to give us information about this item. We're not voting on a resolution at this time. We're gathering or obtaining information. Who would like to start?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for doing the people's business today. I'm up north with my kids, but this was an important issue, and I thought it appropriate, Commissioner Jackson and myself thought it appropriate to bring people up to date where we are in this process. I know that individuals have come up to me asking where are we on this initiative, what things are going on, what are we looking at, and thought it was appropriate since, everyone was meeting today to kind of give just an overview, and for those who are newer to the board, kind of a historical context of kind of what brings us to this point. So happy to have a conversation about the importance of body cams, a priority that, we've lifted up and with the administration, finding a way forward. Our sheriff's office, particularly through the contracting with a number of communities, probably is like the largest police agency that doesn't have it yet, and it comes really down to funding and figuring out a long sustainable way of paying for these things. So as a board, last September, the board, with support of the administration, authorized development of an RFP for body cameras. That was completed, and the RFP was issued end of last year, and went through the RFP process, which I think also ended up including other updating of equipment, the dash cams and other technology that we are already underway. The vendor was selected. And I'm very excited, and at a future meeting we can have the vendor here to talk more about the technology if that's helpful. And I know that we've got some expertise in the sheriff's office that can shed some more additional information on there. But this is cloud-based technology that easier to store data, capture data, less manual operation, and will formally achieve all the information that we want to gather in this to improve law enforcement across the county. About a little bit over a month ago, staff, myself, the sheriff office met, including the vendor, talk and kind of just like where are we with the full cost, what this looks like, and moving forward. And so when you're looking, you have a lot of data in front of you. Kind of coming out of that, a recommendation of moving forward with a 5-year contract for these, which, 5 years for the cloud storage element, the acquisition of the equipment that would be replaced in 2.5 years. Probably the key thing that kind of came up in that most recent discussion is the additional personnel that is required to handle increase of FOIA requests, redacting, and other things that are necessary to satisfy the law requirement. The vendor has agreed to lower their costs as an offset to help us afford the additional personnel, at least at the start of this program. So the point of having this on the agenda is to add a little bit of again, context, get the information in front of you. So a little bit of work over the next couple weeks, working with the administration, identifying the funding source, likely coming out of fund balance. There are some grant requests that are out there. I was successfully able to work with some of our congressional leaders, adding to their earmark requests. That obviously is a process, and so we will be working on this. If these are things that can actually happen, then we will work to structure the resolution so that we can take advantage of those opportunities. At the same time, we don't want to be sitting on our hands for the next couple of years, hoping for something that doesn't materialize when, I think from a public safety perspective, this is long overdue and is a priority. So I'll stop there, and I'm sure that Lieutenant Schneider, who's really been a point on this, and Undersheriff McCabe can, probably share a little bit more detail of what the RFP process was, the vendor selected, the rationale for all of that, and going from there.
So Commissioner Woodward, it looks like the cost went from over $3 million to $1,400,000 as an estimate right now. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I think the 5-year with a 5-year cloud storing contract.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to switch devices here.
And it sounds like we're searching for grants first before we look at our budget cost to pay for body cams.
Yeah, so from a budget perspective, so there are some state grants that are out there. This is from an infrastructure point of view, something that's important around the country, trying to seize on those opportunities. I've asked our U.S. senators to include it into their earmark requests, which is, earmarks have not been part of the congressional process for the last a decade. And so, they've graciously agreed to include that, realizing that it might not be there in the end. So we need to figure out what the appropriate runway and a mechanism. One thought is seeing if we can work with the vendor not to be invoiced for equipment. That's the hard equipment. We're talking about this physical cameras that are worn. The cloud-based storage didn't seem to be something that was a eligible activity for those earmarks. But looking at every opportunity out there, figuring out the best way to move forward to afford this at the lowest cost, but most importantly, to make sure that we have a quality product for the sheriff office to be able to use.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, is there anything you'd like to add?
I'd like to just say, at this point, we are going to be working with the Sheriff's Department to bring this to pass and enhance the resolution to make sure that the costs that we have put out here today are correct and acceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Lieutenant Schneider, Undersheriff, Guy, is there anything you'd like to add about this for information purposes?
I know the chairman's trying to find funding for this, and we are in the process of applying for a federal grant that is out there right now. The due date on that is July 26th, and there is a possibility of a state grant. Right now, there's $10 million set aside statewide in the proposed budget in Lansing, but that has not been approved yet. I would like to point out that if money is appropriated, then we cannot accept grant dollars. It can't supplant. So that's a concern to us. The resolution does need some work from our perspective in terms of things that need to be in there that we've sent over to the board that asked to be put in there. There was a little bit of miscommunication in terms of, we didn't find out about this. Mr. Chairman called me the day it was being introduced, but prior to that, I didn't know it was being introduced. So we do have some concerns. It's not that we're opposed to body-worn cameras. We're not. But we want to make sure it's done right and that it's funded correctly. Then there's also the question of, are we going to charge back the local municipalities that we contract with? So that is a question that's going to have to be answered also. So the administration has already decided they're going to charge back in the upcoming contracts next year some indirect costs that have never been charged back before. There will be some discussion about that, I'm sure. There was also a discussion about if we're going to charge back some of the indirect costs to the contracts, again, this being part of them. The local municipalities are not charged for jail boarding fees, and that was eliminated when there was many years ago when there was a trade-off on the indirect costs. So we've got some concerns, but we'll work with the board and the chair and the administration to hopefully bring this to fruition.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, to what you just said, Under Sheriff, it sounds like then the communities that we have OSCO contract with are getting free jail stays? They're
No.
not?
Well, let me explain that to you. There's Class 2 courts and Class 3 courts. There's the county-funded courts, the 52s, and then there's the locally controlled courts. The local controlled courts, funded courts, are not charged jail boarding fees. That was eliminated many years ago in an agreement with the administration. And the 52s can't be charged by state law. So the communities that are served by the 52s that are county-funded cannot be charged jail boarding fees. That would raise probably close to $7 million a year. I can tell you the city of Pontiac used to pay over $2 million a year to put their local ordinance violators, not state law violators. So if a judge sentenced somebody on a local ordinance violation, a city ordinance violation for drunk driving, then the county used to bill that back at a rate set by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now, about implementing this, I mean, what are the timelines like if and when all this comes
Well,
through?
we find funding first, so, I'm not sure I've had discussions with the administration, I know the chair has, so I'm not sure exactly where that is right now. But again, I want to point out that, we're applying for the grant due July 26th federally. If you appropriate money for it, then the grant money can't be accepted because it can't supplant.
So assuming that the chair of the county commission and the Democrat caucus, which has the majority votes, does find the funding, what would the plan be? Like, what is the timeline for implementing this?
It's going to take several months. This is a huge project. We're the third largest police agency in the state of Michigan. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of cameras here that we're going to have to deploy throughout the department. It's not just road patrol, it's corrections, it's the courts, it's everybody.
So
it's not a small project.
Is it possible for us to...
Yes.
4 months.
Thank you.
4 months to...
Yeah, well, Commissioner Cavell, Madam Chair, if I may, adding to that point, so there's the mechanisms to secure the funding and the operation of what we need to do to make sure the funding is put in place, the order for the cameras can be put in place, gathering, and then there's obviously the operations and the lead time that the sheriff office needs to be implementing. So what I can say in the next 2 weeks, a funding proposal, working with the administration, and coming forward to be able to achieve this, as well as be structured in a way to maximize any grant opportunities. For instance, Under Sheriff McCabe is correct about appropriating and supplanting. We could structure this in a way, there's about $1 million worth of equipment. We can structure this that we don't appropriate the money for the physical equipment, depending, again, what the grant opportunities are out there. And preliminarily, conversations with the vendor could delay invoicing for those that would need an appropriation in the future for that. So that's, I'm just talking about some of the strategies that are available if that opportunity presents itself, realizing that should it not happen, then we have to have a plan. Worst case scenario, how do we implement this? I look at this, implementing this, choosing not to implement this is not an option. We'll dot our I's, cross our T's, look for every funding stream out there. We will fully exhaust it. Again, I want to applaud Senators Peters and Stabenow for being willing to at least try to get it into some of the federal earmark dollars, but obviously that's a process that will work its way through the fall. But I'm optimistic in the next 2 weeks. The hope is, and the reason we want to kind of bring this information up, this is update in part because many of you have asked me, like, where are we on this? Well, this is like all the up-to-date information that we have. The next 2 weeks, working with fiscal services to formally secure where are we going to pay for this and sustainably pay for this for the next 5 years. And then what are the mechanics that we have to work out in this legislature? In this legislation to make certain that that we maximize every funding opportunity that's out there.
Thank you. So, Under Sheriff, if the federal grant is due July 26, when does the grant end? Deadline end? When would you find out if an award is accepted?
Gail, do you know?
That could be any time. It's through the Department of Justice, so a lot of times if we apply right now, we'll probably hear sometime in the fall. It would start October 1st, but we don't always get funding prior to the start date, and then we would bring it to you as soon as we got any notice of award,
Okay.
and then obviously implement after that point.
Thank you.
And then the same thing with the state grant, although, like I say, the budget hasn't passed yet, so the budget has to pass at the state level. As you know, they've only passed the education budget so far. And if that passes right now, there's $10 million proposed. That may increase. I don't see it decreasing, and we would get, being Oakland County, I would think a fairly good share of that amount of money.
Thank you. Commissioner McGilvery?
You asked my question.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Can I just say that
Of
we
course.
did provide an ROI as required through project management, so we provided the ROI, and then we provided also what the vendor that won the bid gave us as a quote. They were at least $1 million cheaper than the next one down, first of all. Second of all, that quote does reflect the $700,000 discount that they gave us to do a 5-year to help pay for the 2 additional positions, so that's good, over a 5-year time frame. So that quote is $3.8 million with the 5 years for the county, some IT costs, and those 2 positions. It comes to approximately $4.8 million for 5 years. That's in some change, but it's right there. So that's really what, when you think about how much is this going to cost us, it's $4.8 million for 5 years. That includes a 2.5-year refresh. So what the company does is at year 2.5 of the 5, they take all the body cams and any associated equipment back, and they give us all brand new, so that we're there. As you know, technology is changing rather quickly, especially with COVID, and so 3 years many times can be end of life for a lot of technology. So that's why we get the refresh, which is good, at the 2.5-year point, and everyone will get brand new body cams and associated equipment with that.
And as the chairman pointed out, Motorola was a successful bidder, and they happen to be the same company that provides our in-car cameras. So there's always, you got to have that marriage, having 2 separate vendors, and we're quite frankly happy they won the bid. But it makes it very difficult because, salespeople, oh, not a problem, we can make those things work. That, as you know, very rarely happens. So that's the good thing here. It's the same vendor that does our in-car cameras.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Jackson?
I just want to state that on an issue that the public is so excited and passionate about, I appreciate the fact that we are working toward implementation. And I really feel as though we've made a lot of progress at this point, even from December 2020, putting out the RFP. So thank you for your work.
Yes, if I could add to that, thank you very much. And, the sheriff's #1 priority is training, as you know. It's the EOC, dispatch, and Emergency Operation Center, dispatch, and training center, okay? And so we're hopeful that's going to move forward. I know that it's been pulled off the finance agenda, but these things go hand in hand. A camera system, body-worn camera system, what it does is verify that you've had the proper training. It's not a solution. Body-worn cameras aren't a solution. Proper training is a solution, and body-worn cameras will then confirm that your training protocols are correct.
Commissioner Powell?
Were you given a reason as to why it was put off finance?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll ask leadership. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, because I wanted to let everybody know that the sheriff has taken quite a lead here on technology. And at this point, we have the most technologically advanced DNA lab in the country. And very shortly, we're going to have one of the most technologically advanced jails in the country. for the things that we're doing for the inmates with the tablets and the communications that they have and the educational benefits they have and the reading and just, returning to society, all the different things that we're doing on there. So there's a whole host of things here that fall into training, as the undersheriff said, that is really about technology and how do we leverage that to help everybody, to help officers, to help those that are incarcerated, to help those that we, come in contact with on the road. And all of this stuff plays into the same thing. We're replacing all of the cradle point modems in the trunks of our cars with technology that has dual SIM chips in them so that you can send your technology up to the cloud so that you can increase the speeds of your policing when you're working on your devices and looking at maybe getting rid of some of the antiquated things that you normally see in cars. So we're going to a totally different level in the next couple of years on this stuff, and this is all part of it. And that training center is obviously a big part of it too, because I'm upgrading the technology in any of those training areas and any of the things that we do with our people. So it's pretty
All right,
big.
thank you. Anything else? All right, so this is informational only. We have a motion and support for the information. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, we don't have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, then we need a motion.
The motion what, to receive?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Receive and file. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, support by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion is carried. Thank you. That was our last item on the agenda. Is there any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting at 12:19. Thank you, everybody.